Hey, good evening welcome once again to Meteorology Lab, and I figured this would be a good time to take a look back on Hurricane Harvey. Didn't have a chance to really appreciate the footage because so much was going on back then, so I kind of enjoyed watching this time lapse once again, and you can see all that moisture moving through the area, lots of clouds and a lot of motion there in the sky. Okay, we'll take a look at today's data, and there's our picture at this time. So we've got a front moving southward through the Great Plains, stretches from about Chicago down to the Lubbock area. It looks like we're picking up a little bit of a wave around the Albuquerque area, and all of this is driven by this high pressure in the high plains, 1033 millibar high in that area, and you can see the vast coverage of that high pressure area all the way from the Hudson Bay region to Nevada and Idaho there. So that's this large continental polar, maybe modified maritime somewhat air mass. And down to the south, one thing that you notice is we don't have much flow coming up from the Gulf. There's not even one isobar. So the flow coming off the Gulf is pretty weak. And let's take a closer look at that system down there in Texas. Let's see, flow off the Gulf in upper Texas there, it's about 5 knots, and we pick up some 15-knot gusts down, or 15-knot winds down around Corpus Christi. So yeah, there is a little bit of a weak onshore flow there, but it's this is one reason why the dew points have not come up a whole lot. They're only running in the 50s this afternoon. So along the warm front here, the plunging cold front, dew points in this area only around 58 there at about Snyder. The dry line, let's see where that's located. It's definitely a little bit past Del Rio. Maybe not quite to Sanderson, so actually we're going to curve that up northeast because we got 52, 51 dew points, and even 45 there around, what would that be? Around just north of Mason. I used to drive through that area, but I've forgotten some of the town names there. Anyway, we trace that north, and I guess that's the best we can do for a dry line. Just kind of right there through that hill country region. Most of the moisture is kind of concentrated along the warm front there. Then up in the Texas Panhandle, we've got gusts up to 34 knots with that cold northerly wind coming down, temperatures in the 40s, and even off the top of the map, 39 in the Denver area. Then let's see, out in the Four Corners area, we've got southwesterly flow there, bringing warm air up from northwest Mexico. Temperature's pretty warm, 95 there in the Phoenix area, 89 at Las Vegas, 100 at around Blythe. But up to the north, you can see the cool north flow coming out of Utah there. So in between, we've got a pretty well delineated cold front there, and this air here is probably more Pacific in nature. So we've probably got two different air masses, maybe one up here and then the Canadian air mass up north. Okay, so that brings us into the charts. Let me get that all set up here. And we'll start out briefly, since we've been covering a little bit of dynamics today. We'll show the current 500 millibar heights and vorticity. Okay, so there's what we're looking at this evening. Got a pretty good shortwave moving down through the Denver area, northwest Colorado, Utah. So most of the lift is obviously going to be concentrated. Trying to find a good color. Yeah, we're going to use green here. This whole area, this is where we have ascent in between this trough and the upstream ridge, which is in this area here. And you can see that with that ridging, looks like we've had a little bit of subsidence working on the air mass in Texas. So some of the areas around Dallas Oklahoma City, and possibly earlier today up along the dry line. We're probably underneath that subsidence zone there. This is kind of an interesting graphic. I was looking at this on the College DuPage site. This is the temperature product. And this shows the cold air, the cold air coming down with that front. Let me draw that right here. And then out here in Utah, of course, there's the Pacific air. And you notice a little bit of a wave in Iowa. See that right there? I kind of drew over it, but there's a plot there that's kind of northwesterly. So there's a little bit of a stable wave in that region right here. And those are details that you have to kind of look for when you're analyzing boundaries, especially in the spring. So where's most of the cold air? Where's it coming from and where's it going? Well, if we look at the temperature product, kind of looks like it's focused in Colorado there. Let's go through the next day or two. Kind of looks like it's affecting around Amarillo, Tucumcari, Clovis. And then we have a second front coming in. If you look up to the top of the chart there, there's that next cold surge. This is on Thursday morning. And where's the strongest cold air with this? Well, if you look at this map, it appears to be focused in the Omaha, Des Moines, and Kansas City area, and around Illinois there. However, one thing that does complicate the picture is the ascent of the terrain as you go west. So when we're looking at temperature plots like this, we normally find cold air around the Rockies and warm air out here. So obviously that's going to bias the chart a little bit. So what can we do there? One thing we could do is look at potential temperature. But there's not many sites online that let you do that for some reason. If we go to surface, I don't see any potential temperature in here. We do have theta E, but that uses moisture. This is kind of hard to come by on a lot of sites, but here's a trick you can use. See here on 925, you can use the temperature there. See, normally if you take surface and plot temperature, the temperature values, they follow the terrain. So you end up with, you're looking at altitudes of about 1,000 MSL in Oklahoma, and then you go out to Colorado and you're looking at about 8,000 feet. So elevation definitely affects that surface product. So if you pick 925 here and look at temperature, that'll get you down to about 2,000 or 3,000 feet MSL, and it does intersect the mountains, which is kind of an issue. However, most likely what they're doing is they're taking the, I guess if you want to call it, the 925 millibar potential temperature. So this is kind of a proxy there for 1,000 millibar potential temperature there. You're basically taking the surface readings out in the mountains, you're reducing it to 925 millibars, and it's effectively giving you a constant pressure product there. So in other words, you're roughly about the same altitude above MSL with this product. And this is why this can be very good to look at for air masses. So let me show you. Let's look at that same loop there. Okay, where's the cold air? We're starting out this evening. Yeah, it looks like it's focused in Colorado there. And one thing that you can see here is the boundaries in the mountainous area here. There's a lot less noise in the mountains due to elevation, so the boundaries really stand out there in the Rockies. So let's run that through. So the cold air, yeah, definitely heading into West Texas there. And you can see the curvature of the air mass as it curves due to the Coriolis force. It's acting to kind of pull the air to the right, and so it's kind of tracking that way. And let's roll this forward. You can see the air right there in the El Paso area. And overnight, Wednesday night, you can even see it creeping westward towards Arizona right there. So they're probably going to get a cool east wind, maybe Saturday or Thursday night there. See those winds turning around to the east there. That's how a lot of the colder air masses reach Arizona. They don't come directly from the north due to all the mountainous blocking, but sometimes they can work through the passes there in southern Wyoming or through the lower elevations there in New Mexico. So easterly flow there, and it is often associated with cold air in Arizona there. And then we can see the next air mass come down. There it is. And you notice that it appears to be heading more for Texas. So this kind of gets rid of the effects of the higher terrain instead of being influenced there by the elevation. You get a little bit more definition there with these air masses. So that's what's going on over the next couple of days. A couple of incursions coming southward, and pretty quiet out there in the western U.S. And let me check the western U.S. there. Just kind of rolling through to see what's going on the west coast. And they're kind of under a cool northwesterly flow there. Okay, so let's see, where does that bring us to? Hang on a second here. I think I was showing you the wrong chart here. This is the 925 millibar temperature chart. Okay, so you got to look at the air masses earlier, but compared to that, you can see the definition is much, much better there in Albuquerque. And yeah, right there, see that right there, right around the El Paso area, northern Mexico, this air mass definitely shows up better than what I showed you previously. And here comes the next surge of cold air coming south. And here you can really see it moving into West Texas and New Mexico there. So we contrast that with the other chart. And you can see that with that chart it's a little harder to find the air mass there because it's showing as cold in this area, in that higher terrain of New Mexico. But here we've kind of gotten rid of that effect, and this gives us kind of a better portrayal there of the boundaries. Anyway, so there you go. And there's more cold air coming south, and wow, look at that, 35 knots sustained at 925 millibars for Friday morning. So Friday morning looks to be pretty gusty in the Dallas and Oklahoma City area. Okay, so let's take a look over the next 1 or 2 days. Big shortwave moving south. And we can see that moving down into Oklahoma and the Texas Panhandles tomorrow. So this will be a source of lift coming into the area, and then it's going to be out over the Arkansas and Louisiana area for Thursday. And another wave coming down. So you kind of notice a pattern here. 2 big short waves. They're kind of associated with those low-level incursions of cold air. This troughing here is kind of bound up with that colder air over the Dakotas on Thursday, and you can see that moving down southward. And we get the ridging building in from the west, and that's some warmer air there in the Rockies. And of course, another way we can look at this, there's the area of ascent there in Colorado and Kansas right now. And here's the chart we talked about yesterday. This is the differential divergence. So the purple here is where we have divergence being indicated aloft. So 2 little centers there. That's close to that shortwave trough there. And we're showing a little bit of low-level convergence out over the Rockies and in south-central New Mexico there, and then the shading indicating where those are linking up there. So yeah, this is a useful chart, and I'd recommend checking it out as we get into spring here, especially with the systems coming out in New Mexico, or Old Mexico. you'll really be able to track those quasi-geostrophic disturbances as they move through the flow, through this data sparse area in here. Very hard to get surface data to keep track of these things, so model data does help fill that in quite a bit. So we got a couple of showers there in the Abilene area. Cold front coming south. This is that area of where we have a warm front. So these are probably somewhat elevated. Just kind of showery and gusty thunderstorms. We have a marginal risk and no watches in effect. All right, we'll go ahead and give you the satellite. And this is showing those thunderstorms there in Texas. Let me take a look at chat, see what we got going on this evening. Pretty quiet in chat with midweek, with things being with us being in the middle of the week. Erica Baker reporting Coffeyville, Kansas, fair sky 76. Mike Estwick is reporting 35 and snow in Denver, no accumulation. Christian Flock 75 in Yukon. Got Ron Chalfant joining us, and David Moore sitting in the back of the property in northwest Texas watching disorganized high base storms. Funwood Tech is joining us, and Mike Wan, Adam Davis says, looks like spring is arriving just in time for graduation. Commencement on the 12th. Shirley Keast, 37 degrees in Michigan. A little bit of light rain earlier. Mike Estwick impressed by that cold air, the gradient in the plains. Got Carl Berghoff here. Mike Estwick says at least you don't have snow showers. And let me just scroll through this quickly. Justin Polium says Harvey was the worst. Electric Dog is here. Also Ryan reporting severe weather and tornadoes in South Florida. Robert Pleasant is here, and Megan John, 53 in Minnesota. Willie Greenway. And Robert Pleasant reporting 58 in Tennessee. Mike Estwick plugging the books, much appreciated. And yeah, you definitely want to try to get a copy of that Instability, Shear, and Helicity Handbook. And Willie Greenway asking which book, and if you're looking for a good introductory book, I would recommend the Weather Analysis and Forecasting Handbook. We got Chris Tyne here, and Ron Chalfant mentioning the books are useful for the changes in seasons. The website is weathergraphics.com. I really need to do that overlay. I'd like to be able to pop that up on the screen. And Carl Berghoff had a pretty good cold front come through this afternoon, 55 ahead of it and 35 behind it. Fog rising off the road. Wow. Dustin Knight is here, got stuck having to read about the high-resolution rapid refresh version 3 expected May through June of this year, May or June. All right, new developments to look forward to here. Okay, so we've been looking at this visible, or this, what does this look like to you? Kind of looks like visible imagery because it's got that black and white character to it, but this is actually infrared. Look back behind the cold front. You see these, you can see low clouds down very close to the ground, but they've got that cloudy texture in there. You can really see the difference there. So we go from, let's see, what are we looking at here? Yeah, that's the area of cloud back behind the cold front. And the clouds are actually a little bit warmer, it appears, than the ground. And let's see, what else? Anything else interesting on this? You notice that white sands doesn't show up. And that's usually very prominent in satellite imagery. So you're probably not used to this being infrared because normally we use enhancement like that. I'd say about 99% of the infrared images on the internet are enhanced like this, and you're basically taking the temperature and mapping it to a color palette. In Macitus, there's menus that allow you to do that. This is how we used to look at the imagery back in the old days. In fact, when I started, it wasn't that long ago. We did have PCs that ran enhancement curves and stuff like that, but back in the 80s and 70s, all of your imagery just about looked something like this. And the reason we use enhancement is because the eye is not sensitive to changes in grayscale like it is with colors. So by using a color palette, we can really bring out colors by assigning gradients to color ranges. So we can see the overshooting tops there in the around the Jayton to Guthrie area. We can see the detail on the high clouds, the kind of the noisy look there, and yet we still have detail down on the low levels. So that's the reason we use enhancement a lot. See, there's all that low cloud, that stands out, shows up as very distinct. It's kind of hard to see it on the grayscale. So the color actually works to our advantage by bringing out more detail than we would normally see. And then this is the visible imagery. It's a little bit higher resolution, so we can kind of see some of the waves on the top of the clouds. I want to say maybe they're KH waves. I'm not sure. Have to look at some more of the data there, but there's the disorganized convection down there east of Lubbock all the way down to the Abilene area there. And then our water vapor imagery. So there's our wound up system there. We saw it yesterday over Tennessee, and it's slowly exiting, I guess around West Virginia there, and then the main surface systems are well out to the east. And we're getting back into another subtropical plume there, coming up from the Mexico region. And then we look out to the east, or to the west, and we find a very deep system offshore there. And let's take a look at that. And there it is. We can just kind of look at the rotation there and use that to find the upper level low. So somewhere, I guess about 600, 800 miles off the California coast, got an upper level low in that region right there. To the south, there's a little bit of dry slot right there, and then ahead of it, the area of ascent right there. So where's the jet? With a well-developed system, we're going to find it between the subsonant and rising area, kind of in this area, and then as we get into the back of the system, it's going to go around kind of like that right there. Sometimes they'll go up to the north. And there's basically two kinds of systems. One is it'll cross like that, and then some other systems, they'll be set up like this. So we've got one of those two types there. One of them is, I think, called like a type A, and the other is type B, but I've kind of forgotten which one is which. But we may see something like that on the upper level chart. Let me just take a quick look and see if that matches up. So I'm just kind of showing you a rule of thumb there. I'm not sure if this is trying to figure out where their upper level fields are from. Let me grab another source here. I'm going to go to Pivotal Weather. I'm just going to them because I'm not, that other upper air site that we normally use, I'm not too sure where the wind field is coming from, and I don't want to confuse you guys. Let me get this loaded up here. Upper dynamics, upper air. Yeah, here we go. 300 millibar wind. Okay, so this is our wind field. And it looks like we've got that second pattern going on. Very weak winds along the west coast there. So looking at that, we would draw the wind field. I think going with that, it's going to be kind of a setup like that. All right, and looks like we got some rain there moving on the North California coast. So I'm sure San Francisco, Fort Bragg, Arcata, Fort Eureka may be getting a little bit more precip there. Okay, so let's look at the forecast. We've got kind of a fair evening. I'm going to look at high resolution rapid refresh. We're going to take a look at the short term with these storms there in Texas. So we consider what kind of system this is. These are not dry line storms. This is not an MCS along a cold front. This is warm front, kind of elevated storms. So these are probably going to shut down overnight unless there's some upper air support. And let's roll that forward. Yeah, it looks like they're breaking up around 1 to 2 a.m. However, we've got that next cold air mass surging south. And it looks like maybe some lift from that system approaches. You can see things kind of flaring up after dawn. This is around 9 in the morning. Now, this is still going to be kind of elevated, but looks like with that approach of upper level lift, maybe we'll see a little bit of rain in the Dallas area during the day tomorrow. Okay, let's go into the medium term. And we're going to look at the upper air patterns. So here's that lift coming south. So by tomorrow morning, it's definitely acting on North Texas, the Red River, and Oklahoma there. So that's helping those showers to start flaring up. Tonight, however, let me roll this back. You can see tonight we're mostly under the influence of that ridge right there. So that's helping to keep things kind of shut down. Then let's go into the next couple of days. That disturbance there will be pushing towards Little Rock and Mississippi there. Large trough diving down through the Dakotas. And then coming into Friday, that trough really digs in there, and we got kind of a cutoff low starting to form around Arkansas early Friday. And that heads into Mississippi and Louisiana there. I don't know how much moisture there is in the lower levels, but if there is moisture available, that could help get some thunderstorms going in that region there. Ridging for the weekend, all of the plains underneath ridging there, but we've got this next system moving inland. And that's the end of the NAM. So we'll go ahead and put together things with the GFS, and we're going to use the dew point. And let's see what's going to happen over the next few days, or in the next few weeks. 1030 high pushing southward. You can see the moisture is kind of weak down there in Texas, only 50s and a few low 60s. So by tomorrow midday, that front's going to be pushing into East Texas and South Central Texas. A little bit of lift associated with that front, helping to generate some showers. Kind of in this area here, just behind the front. Maybe a little bit of an antifront setup. And then that front will continue pushing southward. And then we've got the next system coming southward, driven by this 1028 millibar high. That'll move quickly into Texas, Louisiana there. And we do have that very potent upper level disturbance moving from Nebraska down to Louisiana, kind of like that. So there could be some showers along that front there in Louisiana. And then we clear out a lot of the moisture for Friday and Saturday. return flow starting to set up over the weekend, but with that ridging aloft, that's going to put this area under subsidence. So probably not a whole lot going on over the weekend. The moisture surges north on Sunday and Monday. And look at those 60s coming northward. So the air mass will start recovering by Monday, dry line setting up in West Texas. So when we come back after the weekend break, we'll probably have some weather to look at. Tuesday looks to have some dry line potential. This is a Tuesday evening. And we've got probably a little bit of a triple point in southwestern Nebraska along that cold front there. So possibly thunderstorms. Looks like, looking at this moisture field, anywhere from Garden City down to Lubbock. And then here comes that next cold front pushing south for Thursday. Looks like it'll stall out there in Texas. Now we've got 70s coming up. So yes, we are getting back into a spring next week. Looks to be active around midweek next week, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Looks like a stationary front in that area, which always means wet weather in May. And then the moisture surges north, 60s going back up into the Central Plains for the 7th. And I do see many potential days here for thunderstorms. So second week in May, first and second week look to be kind of active there. And as we close the sequence out on the 10th there, 70s coming back up into Texas once again. Okay, so that's your 35-minute weather summary. Let me take a look at chat here briefly. Let's see, we've got Adam Davis wishes he could invite everyone. Oh, graduation. Okay, I thought that was the web stream. Fun with Tech. Discussing the graduation there. Willie Greenway likes the grayscales, and Adam Davis says there are times when it feels like that eastern trough is stuck forever. Seems like that's been the theme all spring. Let me go back to that upper level chart. Sorry, my tabs are a mess. I've got like 35 tabs open. Yeah, let's go back to that. Yeah, this is showing the pattern change. You can see a very active upper level low there over northwestern Canada. And then 200 hours later, it's still pretty active there, but we're really increasing the zonal component. And then we'll go up to 288 hours. And now you can see it's predominantly west to east there. So, and this also looks weaker, and in fact it looks like it pushes eastward a little bit towards the Labrador Sea here. Okay, so we will be getting more active here in about a week, and that's about all I got. So I appreciate y'all joining the webcast. Let me turn down my sound so you don't get any feedback. And that'll do it for me. So anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good evening.